our chairperson, Dr. Mswere. But today he has got a special statement to present from His Excellency on the land tenure system. Over to you, Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Chief Secretary. Our comments with His Excellency the President, Dr. E.J. Mnangagwa's statement. The land reform program was carried out for the purpose of divesting ownership of agricultural land from the minority white farmers to the black majority people of Zimbabwe. The rationale of the land reform was to address the inequalities that existed during the colonial era and to ensure that every Zimbabwean had equitable access to this finite resource. The Constitution and other legislative provisions that deal with the administration of agricultural land have mechanisms and safeguards to ensure that the legacy and the benefits of the land reform are protected and that land reform is irreversible. The noticeable new paradigm among Zimbabwean farmers, especially the majority of beneficiaries of the land reform, is to regard and conduct farming as a business, as a source of both livelihood and means of increasing personal economic value. Our young people have positively embraced the land reform program and now account for a significant proportion of the country's commercial farmers. The government has since 2008 put in place various programs to assist farmers to be productive on the land. This support includes the Bakosi inputs and mechanization equipment, the Maguta and the special grains import substitution program, among others. In the Second Republic, the country has witnessed and benefited from the government's deliberate and complementary policy of incorporating accelerated infrastructure development, which includes road construction and rehabilitation, incorporating the much needed rural roads, dam construction, irrigation, and housing development. While our people are endowed with agricultural land resulting from progressive government policies, they continue to grapple with the following challenges: difficulty in accessing affordable, appropriately structured and adequate finance for sustainable commercial agriculture. In the absence of security of tenure, the farmers are not sufficiently motivated to invest adequately and to develop robust infrastructure on their farms and to enhance sustainable production. The threat to land tenure, especially to successors entitled to land held by beneficiaries of the land reform program, such as children of war veterans, arising from inheritance and fraudulent succession issues. While government conceived and implemented these positive programs, there have been varying levels of accountability from the farmers, with a significant proportion of farmers feeling no obligation to pay back loans advanced. Consequently, government has remained saddled with debt emanating from unpaid agricultural loans by many farmers. The menace of land barons who have little or no regard for our town and country planning laws and policies has put a strain on the local authorities' infrastructure. The land barons develop haphazard and unplanned settlements with no basic services such as water, electricity, and sewer reticulation and storm water drainage. Against this background, and in line with Section 292 of the Constitution, read together with Sections 289 and 293 and 294, that obligates the state to give security of tenure to every person and to alienate for value agricultural land, among other requirements. Government will implement the following measures. All land held by beneficiaries of the Land Reform Program under 99-year leases, offer letters and permits will now be held under a bankable, registrable and transferable, more secure document of tenure to be issued by the government of Zimbabwe to beneficiaries. As such, beneficiaries of the Land Reform Program will now have enhanced security of tenure to the land they legitimately hold. This new policy will invariably be informed by the following guidelines. Priority will be given to our veterans of the liberation struggle, youth and women. Security of tenure to all agricultural land regularized under this program will at all time only be transferable among indigenous Zimbabweans. And the land targeted for the new land tenure system will exclude communal land that is under the jurisdiction of traditional chiefs. Urban land will only be made commercially available to credible and approved land developers who will add value to the land in compliance with all relevant laws and protocols. Ultimately, the goal is to establish high-quality housing developments in fulfillment of our vision of an upper-middle income economy by the year 2030. Areas that are not in use within cities will be considered for urban development. Urban renewal, urban transformation, and regularization will also be given priority. These agricultural and urban land measures will have a huge impact on our economic growth and will unlock the full value of the land while enhancing the performance of our economy. This will facilitate accelerated investments in agriculture and associated value chains, which include irrigation, dam construction, power supply, rural road construction. The economic value enhancement on land will further unlock resources for the fulfillment of constitutional obligations related to land reform. All these measures will complement current efforts towards an upper middle income economy, which will be achieved by the year 2030. The President has constituted a Cabinet Oversight Committee, which will be chaired by the Honorable Minister Opa Muchinguri Kashiri to lead this reform process. A technical committee, the Land Tenure Implementation Committee, to coordinate and steer the implementation of this process will also be constituted. These committees will work diligently to develop improved security of tenure for land beneficiaries, whilst ensuring that the value of agricultural and urban state land value is fully unlocked to guarantee inclusive and nationwide economic development. Detailed terms of reference have been developed for the two committees. The government will put in place all the necessary institutional and logistical mechanisms to ensure the smooth coordination and implementation of these new policies and objectives. Accordingly, the government hereby forthwith issues an indefinite moratorium on the issuance of any new 99-year leases, offer letters, and permits for agricultural land. In conclusion, the government of Zimbabwe remains committed to jealously safeguarding the gains of our liberation struggle, including our precious land and everything beneath it. Never again will our land fall back into the hands of our colonizers. The utilization of this land will be guided by our time-tested mantra, Nyika inovakwa nevene vayo, ilizwe lakiwa ngavanikazi valo. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, for presenting the land tenure statement by His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Zimbabwe, Dr. Emmerson Mnangagwa. We now move on to some highlights of today's cabinet. Over to you again, Honorable Minister.
The Minister of Industry and Commerce, Honorable N.M. Ndlovu, updated Cabinet on the status of prices and availability of basic commodities. This follows the Monetary Policy Committee's board resolutions on Friday, the 27th of September 2024. In response to the widening gap between the official and parallel exchange rates that caused the observed surge in ZiG-denominated prices during the period, the Ministry of Industry and Commerce conducted surveys of the prices and availability of basic commodities over the period 27 September to 4 October 2024. The ZiG prices of basic commodities in the formal retail outlets have increased in response to the adjustment of the local currency. However, the prices of the commodities in US dollar terms in both the formal and informal outlets have remained stable. Both the ZiG and US dollar prices are still on the higher side in the formal retail outlets, indicating an element of forward or speculative prices and benchmarking against the black market rates. Limited stock levels of cooking oil, mealie, bread, and sugar were observed in the formal outlets, while the products are readily available also in the informal sector. This is attributable to arbitrage, as informal retail economic agents seek to capitalize on exchange rate differentials, given the reported cases of hoarding in the formal sector for resale to informal outlets. It is also evident that most suppliers have reduced supplies to the formal sector and are channeling them to the informal sector. However, critical to notice the fact that there are no major shortages of basic commodities in the formal retail sector. Government of Zimbabwe would like to assure the citizenry of Zimbabwe that regular monitoring and stakeholder engagement to ensure market-relevant interventions will continue, and that a number of measures have been put in place in order to support the formal sector. I think.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Over to you, colleagues. If there are any questions, observations from the presentation by the Honorable Minister emanating from today's cabinet. Any observations, questions? Yes.
Abigail Tembo from the ZBC. With regards to the issue of pricing and availability of basic goods, are there any mechanisms which have been put in place to ensure that we don't go back to the 2008 era where commodities disappeared from the shelves?
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Over to you, Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Abigail Tembo. Honorable Mirovu, the question is, are there mechanisms that have been put in place in order to guarantee the supply of goods and services across the entire country? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chair of this session, and I want to thank Abigail for this question. Abigail, what I want to start with really is that the interventions that the monetary authorities introduced last week are a critical step towards ensuring that we work on a convergence between the formal exchange rate and dollar market exchange rate, which generally becomes the cause of a number of problems we face in our economy. There are a number of interventions that the Central Bank announced following the Monetary Policy Committee meeting last week. Added to that is the increased support of the formal manufacturing sector by the Central Bank, where they are now increasing the foreign currency that is dispersed through the banks under the willing seller system, mainly to support the purchase, acquisition of raw materials, which are then supplying the formal sector in our economy. You will realize that following that, there has been some stability when you look at what was obtaining in the market in the last 2 to 3 weeks. But from that intervention by the Central Bank, we have seen some stability that has crept in, and the supply of goods in general in the market has improved, it's still stable, and we continue to monitor. So I can assure you that as government, we will continue to monitor closely the developments and come up with the necessary interventions as and when necessary. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any further questions or observations? Yes.
Okay, Abigail. Mine is related to the Minister of Agriculture with regards to the issue of land. Are there any mechanisms again in place to ensure that the land will be used productively? Because in the past we've seen some people getting land but not using it productively. So have you put in place anything to ensure that this land will be used?
Right. Any other question? Over to you, Minister.
Thank you, Abigail. Today we didn't discuss that subject.